All of the bathrooms are shared spaces. There are about three, four if you count the guest bathroom. And they are shared spaces. There are no private changing areas for when you shower. There are no locks on the showers. And it's very open and vulnerable.
Oh my goodness. And this person's moving into the sorority house next year?
What's interesting about that, Megan, is that there has been an exemption granted for him, for his safety, but not for these young women.
Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So I wanted to cover this story about members of a sorority at the University of Wyoming filing a lawsuit against allowing a biological male into their sorority house. And they sought to get an injunction to prevent this person living with them in their sorority house. Unfortunately, their lawsuit has been dismissed by the judge. And the reason for the dismissal is most concerning. The court refused to define what a woman is. The court said it was not their place to define a woman and to alter the sorority's, definition of what a woman is. The court said it wasn't their place. And this is what we've been saying for the longest time. If we cannot define what a woman is, legally, if the courts can't define what a woman is, if the people who make our laws can't define what a woman is, then what hope is there that the rights of women, biological females, are going to be protected? Just like we've seen with Title IX, the very laws put in place to protect women, to protect girls, can now be used against us. If a trans-identified individual wants to infringe upon women's rights, if a biological male who identifies as a woman wants the same rights, the courts can now decide that, if there's no definition of a woman, a transgender individual can be given the same rights, even though they're not a woman, even though they're male. One group of people's rights seem to supersede that of others. The tyranny of the minority. That's what we're seeing now. Understandably, they didn't want to accept a biological male into their sorority house, into their sorority, which is for women, which is for girls. They didn't want to have to be forced to live with this person. Now, there were some allegations made that came out in court, allegations that this person was inappropriate with them, had some sort of fetish, seemed to be visibly turned on, being in the presence of women. These were the allegations that came out in court. But unfortunately, these allegations weren't taken seriously. But I hope this isn't the end. I hope these young girls have a right to appeal. I hope they can continue to pursue this case and finally get to the point where we can define what a woman is. Because again, like I've said, if there's no definition of what a woman is, what rights do women have? That means our rights take a backseat. That means women's spaces can be infringed upon by males. Women's sports can be infringed upon, as we've seen. Women's competitions of all various kinds. That means anyone can identify as a woman and be given the same rights that are specific to women. I've done videos about transgenders wanting to go to gynecologists, wanting to go to beauty salons and given the same treatment, even though their equipment is different. Their biology is different, but they want to be treated like a woman. They want to be given the same healthcare. Again, where does it stop? When there's no clear definition, well, there is a clear definition of a woman, an adult human female. All this judge had to do was look it up in a dictionary and say, this is a definition of a woman. But it's a lack of courage, isn't it, in this day and age? We're seeing a lack of courage. That Supreme Court justice, who is a woman, can declare in front of the whole world that they're not a biologist, they can't answer the question when asked what a woman is. People are willing to look dumb, to dumb themselves down, as to not offend certain groups of individuals, as to not go against the status quo. And they have no problem infringing upon women's rights in order to make sure that the rights of other groups are put first. That's what we're seeing now. The rights of certain individuals fulfilling their rights, or a lot of the time their wants and desires, takes precedence over women's rights. So let's take a look at the story. Judge rejects sorority sisters' lawsuit blocking trans women from joining. The court will not define a woman. A judge dismissed the lawsuit filed by University of Wyoming sorority sisters to block a transgender woman from joining their chapter, despite allegations the student was a sexual predator who got physically aroused around them. Wyoming U.S. District Court Judge Alan Johnson tossed the suit, filed by 6 members of the Kappa Gamma sorority chapter, because the organization's bylaws do not define what a woman is. So the judge is saying that if the bylaws don't define what a woman is, we're not going to. I'm not going to. The dictionary defines what a woman is, though. Why don't you just look in a dictionary? I don't think there was any intention when these bylaws were written to open the door to transgender individuals. I don't think this is what was foreseen when these laws were written, that men would want to enter into sororities for girls and, you know, by claiming they identify as a woman. I don't think that was what they had in mind when they wrote these bylaws. These bylaws were written for women, for sororities, for girls. So they probably didn't see a need to define, you know, what a woman is or what a girl is. A federal court cannot interfere with the sorority chapter's freedom of association by ruling against its vote to induct Artemis Langford in September 2022, Johnson ruled Friday. With its inquiry beginning and ending there, the court will not define a woman today, the judge wrote. The University of Wyoming chapter voted to admit, and more broadly, a sorority of hundreds and thousands approved Langford, he continued. The delegate of a private voluntary organization interpreted woman, otherwise undefined in the non-profit bylaws expansively. This judge may not invade Kappa Gamma's freedom of expressive association and inject a circumscribed definition, plaintiffs urge. Rachel Berkness, Langford's attorney, welcomed the court's ruling and dismissed the allegation that her client, a 6'2", 260-pound trans student, was a sexual predator. The allegations against Miss Langford should never have made it into a legal filing, Berkness said in an email to the Associated Press. And this sets a very concerning precedent because it gives the message that there's no point even fighting this. They are nothing more than cruel rumours that mirror exactly the type of rumours used to vilify and dehumanize members of the LGBTQIA+ community for generations, and they are baseless, Berkness said in an email. The case at Wyoming's only 4-year public university garnered original attention as schools and colleges grapple with how to handle transgender athletes. Okay, so the allegations that the girls made weren't taken seriously. And that's a huge issue for me. She's dismissed obviously she's defending her client, but she's dismissed these allegations when they've all corroborated each other's stories. The 6 girls have come forward and backed up each other's stories. What happened to believe women? Guess that doesn't matter when it's a transgender individual. Are we to believe that in every case of a man saying he identifies as a woman, it's a stunning and brave thing to do? Are we to believe that in every case it's stunning and brave? Sometimes it is a fetish. We've seen what has come out about Leah Thomas. This was revealed on Instagram by Leah and Leah's boyfriend. They had no problem displaying their fetishes to the world.
He's posted a picture of himself with a message endorsing Antifa. And there is a movement underway. They call it Trans-Tifa. And these are trans people who are so radical and so violent in terms of their rhetoric or the way they approach life that they've sort of endorsed the Antifa mentality and approach to conflict. And Leah Thomas, Will Thomas is how Leah lived up until 2 years ago, made it to I think 19 as a man before declaring himself a woman, has joined the movement and is now posting weird social media bondage-esque photos of him with that message. It doesn't surprise me because, as I've told you before, the Daily Wire did a deep dive into Leah Thomas's social media, and it's dark and disturbing. And Leah Thomas is very clearly, according to these posts, into autogynephilia, gets off sexually undressing as a woman. The bondage, of course, playing right into type. And this is the person who is so indignant about not being allowed access to private women's spaces where women take off their clothes. Women had to change in bathrooms belonging to the staff. Women were shying away and they were shamed. But Leah Thomas remains a hero of the left and of people like Megan Rapinoe, who will never have to compete against men.
So in every case, it's a noble cause. In every case, there are no ulterior motives. We're to believe that. And we're not supposed to question any time a man says he identifies as a woman and then wants to infringe upon women's spaces. That's to never be questioned. Every man who walks into the female bathroom is stunning and brave. And we're to be okay with that. Otherwise, we're the phobes. We're the bigots. This whole case and everything that this case represents is basically saying that as a young woman, you should be okay seeing male genitalia. Riley Gaines, Paula, the other swimmers, they had to be okay with seeing male genitalia, or there was something wrong with them. They were the ones who were bigots if they weren't okay with seeing male genitalia. Now, if a man, in other circumstances, if a man exposes himself, that's a crime. And there's a legal recourse for that. But now, apparently, all he has to do is say that he identifies as a woman. And he can get into whatever space he wants to get into. Are we supposed to believe that there's no loopholes in these laws that is going to allow predators to prey on women and girls? Are we supposed to believe that in no cases is it ever going to open the door to predators now? When women come forward and say they're uncomfortable, when women come forward and give examples, they say that they've seen certain people aroused. They say that they've seen, genitalia exposed to them. They're supposed to be taken seriously in those cases. That's what we were told during the whole Me Too era. But now all of a sudden we can dismiss their concerns. We can dismiss their story that they have been brave enough to come forward with. We can dismiss that. And of course, it's only going to be when something drastic happens, when someone ends up getting hurt, that they may take it seriously then. We're at a point now where young girls in colleges, in sports, they have to be okay with male genitalia. They have to see a woman with a penis. That's what they have to see before them. This is a woman with a penis. Women have penises. So you're a bigot if you're not okay with that. This is what we're teaching our young girls now. This is the message we're giving our young girls. Rather than seeing this is a man who's exposing himself, rather than acknowledging the reality, they now have to see stunning and brave. And I'm an ally. You want to be an ally, you have to be okay with male genitalia in your locker room. So this has been going on since September 2022 when this person joined their chapter, and the lawsuit was filed in March. So these young girls have had to deal with a lawsuit when they should be focusing on enjoying college, when they should be focusing on studying. That's what they should be focusing on. But instead they're in court having to explain to judges that they don't like seeing male genitalia in their sorority house. That they don't like having to share their sorority house with a man. They've been in court explaining this. And then they have to be told that their allegations are baseless. Their allegations are just bigotry, as this person's lawyer said. This is the same thing that's been used to discriminate against LGBTQIA community for the longest time. She's either saying that they're making it up because they're bigots, so they're making up lies against this person, or there's something wrong with them because they're not okay with it. Okay, so Carby Kittrell, the executive director of the sorority, told the Associated Press in May that the lawsuit contains numerous false allegations without specifying them. So this is a person who's supposed to show support to the sorority members, but their only concern is the transgender individual. Their only concern is the biological male. Just like with the swimming, with the NCAA. Their priority was Leah Thomas, not the women, not the young girls. The transgender individual seems to be the priority when it comes to these organizations now. And they're given the clear message that the women don't matter. The biological females don't matter. And this is a woman who is on the side of the transgender individual. So at least she's not what do they call it? A TERF? At least she's not a TERF. She's all for inclusivity. Accepting a transgender individual is very progressive, it's very inclusive, it's very compassionate. Never mind compassion towards the girls, though. She added that Kappa Kappa Gamma, which has over 250,000 members in 140 chapters across the United States and Canada, does not discriminate against gender identity. For the purposes of the court case, this transgender individual was referred to with male pronouns. The pseudonym name that was given was Terry Smith, with one member alleging witnessing Langford getting physically aroused. Mr. Smith has, while watching members enter sorority house, had an erection visible through his leggings, the suit claimed. Other times he has had a pillow in his lap. And Berkness, the director, insisted these claims were nothing more than a drunken rumour, following the suit's dismissal. So, if a young girl came to her office and said that there was a man acting inappropriately, what would her response be? Or maybe in that case it would be taken seriously. It's just when it's a transgender individual, they can do no wrong, clearly. So Kristen Fleming, who writes for The Post, said refusing to legally define the word woman is the biggest cop-out ever. Absolutely. And this is what we're going to see more and more of. They're going to straddle the fence in the courts, in schools, in certain associations, on certain boards. They're going to straddle the fence when it comes to defining what a woman is, because they don't want to exclude transgender individuals. And in doing that, they've chosen that transgender individual rights or wants and needs supersedes the rights of women. There's no way around that. And she also has the same thoughts about when the bylaws were written. The bylaws didn't have this in mind when they were written. They didn't have transgender individuals in mind when they were written. They didn't think, let's make sure that the definition of a woman is left open in case men want to join a sorority one day. I don't think they had that in mind. I don't think they thought it was necessary. And she says, one can assume the sorority's bylaws were written in saner times when it would have been incomprehensible to its authors that they would need to explicitly lay out what is covered in middle school biology class. The Cambridge Dictionary defines sorority as a social organization for female students at some US colleges. Definitions for all of these words are pretty easy to come by. She said, I went to neither law school nor medical school, but I can report that women don't have penises that poke through leggings. Then she says here, if being a woman were merely a flight of fancy, one wouldn't need to take meds or go under the knife to appear more feminine. And criticizing the judge, she said Johnson isn't the only one putting his head in the sand to duck activist backlash. During her Supreme Court confirmation hearings, Ketanji Brown Jackson, a woman of great intellect, declined to define woman, ridiculously saying, I'm not a biologist. However, I can recall no such rapid onset amnesia about the word during the reversal of Roe v. Wade. Exactly. The real story has nothing to do with sororities and fraternities. It's merely our society gone mad. People in big positions are afraid to say what we've known is true since the dawn of human history. Kick the can down the road. But this isn't ending with the word woman. It's just the beginning. Yeah? And that's what we're afraid of. It's just the beginning of this insanity when even the courts refuse to stick to common sense. But I don't want these young girls to give up. I really hope they can appeal. I really hope that they can get the support that they need. For me, it makes me not want to send my kids to college. It gives me even another reason to not want to send my kids to college. It concerns me that this college doesn't believe women. That's what concerns me. It concerns me that if young girls come forward explaining their concerns about a transgender individual, explaining that this person has been inappropriate with them or around them, they're not going to be believed. Because such concerns can only come from bigotry. Such stories can only be drunken rumours. They can only come from a place of bigotry, not a place of truth, apparently. I commend these young ladies. I commend them for their court case. I commend their lawyers, the people who have supported them. And I hope that everyone continues to do so, especially if there's going to be an appeal. But ultimately, they need to get on with their lives. They need to finish school and get out of there. And they've done a good job. They really have in bringing this case forward in the first place. And I hope it does inspire more young girls to seek legal action against this discrimination. Even though this judge ruled this way, that doesn't mean that the next judge is going to do the same, because it doesn't make any sense. The definition of a woman is not philosophical, it's fact, it's biological fact. So it's not open to interpretation, it really isn't. So let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. Take care of yourselves, and God willing, I will see you in the next video.